The worst thing I ever said to Claire Whitaker came out over lukewarm coffee in front of half the marketing department, 15 minutes before the biggest client pitch of our careers. I didn't mean for it to sound cruel. That's what people always say right before admitting they were cruel. Claire had just corrected my slide deck for the third time that morning, standing behind my chair in a navy pencil skirt and white blouse, smelling faintly like citrus and expensive shampoo, tapping one perfect red fingernail against my laptop screen. "Your conversion projections are still too optimistic," she said. "They're ambitious. They're fantasy." I turned in my chair and looked up at her. "Do you ever get tired of being impossible?" Her mouth curved, but her eyes stayed sharp. "Do you ever get tired of needing supervision?" A couple of people nearby laughed. I should have left it there. That was our rhythm. Blade, shield, blade again. We had been doing it for 2 years at Hartwell and Lane, a mid-sized ad agency in Boston where everyone pretended not to watch us spar like it was office entertainment. But I was 30 years old, running on 4 hours of sleep, too much pride, and the dangerous belief that if a woman annoyed you that much, it definitely didn't mean you noticed the way she tucked loose hair behind her ear when she was thinking. So I smiled and said, "Claire, no one is ever going to put up with you." The room went quiet in that quick, ugly way rooms do when a joke misses and lands somewhere soft. Claire's expression didn't change at first. She just looked at me. Then she leaned closer, close enough that only I could hear her. "You do," she said quietly. And just like that, the joke died in my throat. "My name is Bennett Hayes. I was a senior strategist at Hartwell and Lane, which meant I got paid to sound calm while internally calculating how many different ways a project could catch fire. I liked clean timelines, good coffee, and people who said what they meant. Claire said what she meant, like she was filing it with the court. She was 28, our lead creative director, and the only person in the building who could make me feel underdressed while I was wearing a tailored suit. She had dark hair she usually wore in a twist, gray-green eyes that caught every weakness in a room, and a reputation for terrifying interns into becoming better professionals. People called her cold. They were wrong. Cold people don't remember that you hate cilantro after hearing it once at a team lunch. Cold people don't stay until midnight helping a junior designer fix a portfolio. Cold people don't quietly move the office candy bowl away from your desk after noticing you eat stress chocolate like a raccoon in a dumpster. Claire wasn't cold, she was guarded, and apparently I had just hit the gate with a hammer. "Claire," I said, lowering my voice. She straightened, collected the printed deck from my desk, and handed it to me with professional precision. "Clients in conference room B and 10. Then she walked away. No dramatic exit, no slam door, just her heels clicking across polished concrete while everyone pretended to become very interested in their laptops. My friend Mason rolled his chair toward me, holding a mug that said, "Great ideas start with panic." "Congratulations," he whispered. "You finally found the line." I didn't mean, "Oh, good, that fixes everything." I stood too fast, bumping my knee against the desk. Across the office, Claire was arranging storyboards on the conference table like nothing had happened. Her posture was straight, her face unreadable. That bothered me more than if she'd snapped back, because Claire always snapped back. The pitch should have been a disaster. Instead, it was electric. The client was Haverford Hotels, a regional chain trying to reinvent itself for younger travelers without alienating its loyal, older guests. They wanted sophistication without stiffness, comfort without looking sleepy. In other words, they wanted a miracle with a media budget. Claire and I gave them one. I opened with the market positioning. She picked up the emotional angle. I talked numbers. She turned those numbers into people. We didn't look at each other much, but when we did, the timing was seamless. That was the infuriating thing about Claire. Fighting with her made me want to throw a pen. Working with her felt like dancing. At one point, the client's CEO, a silver-haired woman named Patricia Lowell, interrupted me with a concern about brand dilution. Before I could answer, Claire stepped beside me and said, "That's exactly why Bennett's segmentation matters." My name in her mouth made me forget the next line, only for half a second, but she noticed. Of course she noticed. Her eyes flicked to mine, and there it was, a tiny lift at the corner of her mouth. Not forgiveness, not yet. A challenge. I recovered. What Claire means is, we're not asking your existing guests to accept a new identity. We're giving new guests a reason to recognize what your loyal customers already love. Patricia leaned back. You two always work together? Half the room held its breath. Claire said, Unfortunately. I said, Constantly. The client laughed. Claire looked down at the table, but not before I saw it. A real smile, brief and unwilling, like sunlight slipping under a locked door. That should have made me feel better. It didn't. After the pitch, the clients shook our hands and promised to call by Friday. The team burst into relieved chatter. Mason clapped me on the shoulder. Someone mentioned drinks. Claire disappeared. I found her 20 minutes later in the stairwell between the 5th and 6th floors, sitting on the landing with her heels beside her and her forehead resting against the railing. I stopped 2 steps above her. For once, I didn't make a joke. You okay? I asked. She laughed once without humor. That's new. What is? You checking for damage after causing it. I deserved that. I came down the steps slowly and sat on the opposite side of the landing, leaving space between us. The stairwell smelled like dust, metal, and rain from someone's wet umbrella. I'm sorry, I said. Claire lifted her head. Her makeup was perfect. Her eyes weren't. For what part? For saying no one would put up with you. She looked at me for a long second. And? I swallowed. For saying it where other people could hear. Her gaze sharpened. No, I said, correcting myself. That's not enough. For saying it at all. The tension in her shoulders shifted. Not gone, but loosened. I know I'm difficult, she said. You're exacting. That's a nicer word. It's also true. She looked away, jaw tight. My father used to say difficult. My ex said exhausting. My last creative partner requested a transfer after 3 months. The thought of some man calling her exhausting made something hot and unpleasant move through my chest. I kept my voice even. Your last creative partner used Comic Sans in a luxury travel mock-up. Her mouth twitched. He said it was approachable. He was a criminal. That got half a laugh out of her. It hit me harder than it should have, sitting there in a dusty stairwell with the woman who drove me insane, watching her try not to smile because of me. Claire rubbed a thumb over the strap of one heel. You really do put up with me. I looked at her. No, I said. I don't put up with you. Her face closed a little, bracing. I hated that I had taught her to expect the hit. I look for you in every room, I said, before I could make myself safer. There's a difference. The stairwell went completely still. Claire's eyes lifted to mine, and for once, she had no answer ready. Then the door above us opened. Mason's voice echoed down. Bennett, Claire, you two need to see this. Claire stood quickly, slipping back into armor as she grabbed her heels. What happened? I asked. Mason appeared on the landing holding his phone with a strange expression. The client just emailed, he said. They loved the pitch. Claire exhaled. That's good. Yeah, Mason said, looking between us. Except they want both of you in New York tomorrow morning for the final round. I glanced at Claire, she glanced at me. Mason cleared his throat. And they specifically asked if the two of you could present as partners. Partners, Claire repeated. Mason looked like a man who had wandered into a room and found 2 live wires touching. Their word, not mine. I should have said something useful, professional, strategic. Instead, I looked at Claire's bare feet. She had delicate ankles and red polish on her toes. This felt like information I should not have. Claire noticed me, noticing because, of course, she did, and slid her heels back on with the dignity of a queen preparing for battle. Well, she said, standing, I hope you're packed, Hayes. I was born packed. You own a label maker for your sock drawer, don't you? Organization is not a crime. It is when it has a personality disorder. Mason backed toward the stairwell door. Great. The flirting is back. I'm leaving before HR materializes. We're not flirting, Claire and I said at the same time. Mason's grin was unbearable. Right. He disappeared. The door shut. Claire and I stood alone on the landing again, but something had shifted. The air felt thinner, warmer. Like my sentence, I look for you in every room, was still standing there between us, refusing to leave. Claire picked up her folder from the step. We should review the client notes. We should. At the office. Obviously. Neither of us moved. Finally, she said, "Did you mean it?" I could have pretended not to understand. I almost did. But Claire deserved better than my cowardice wearing a suit. Yes. Her fingers tightened around the folder. That's inconvenient? Extremely. I'm still angry with you? You should be. Her eyes searched mine, sharp but uncertain. You're not going to make a joke? I'm trying something new. That sounds dangerous? It is. I'm emotionally unqualified. The corner of her mouth lifted. Finally, a reliable metric. I smiled despite myself. Then she walked past me up the stairs, close enough that her sleeve brushed mine. Just fabric, barely anything. My whole body registered it like a confession. We took the train to New York the next morning. Not because the agency couldn't afford flights. Claire hated flying. I knew because 2 years earlier, during a client trip to Philadelphia, she had gone silent on the short flight, hands clenched around the armrests while pretending to read a quarterly media report upside down. I had never mentioned it, but when travel options came through, I replied first. Train's easier for working. I'll book. Claire emailed back 6 minutes later. Efficient. Suspiciously considerate. I wrote, "Don't get used to it." She replied, "Too late. I've notified the press." So at 7:10 a.m., we sat side by side on an Amtrak train leaving South Station, our laptop bags tucked at our feet, coffee balanced on the tray table between us. Claire wore charcoal trousers, a soft cream sweater, and a camel coat folded neatly over her lap. Her hair was down for once, dark waves brushing her shoulders. I tried not to stare. I failed professionally. She looked over. Do I have something on my face? Hostility. That's been there for years. It suits you. Her brows lifted. Careful, Hayes. That sounded like a compliment. It was an observation. Coward. I laughed, and she looked pleased with herself. For the first hour, we worked. We refined transitions, adjusted the deck, argued over whether belonging was too soft as a campaign theme. It's human, Claire said. It's vague. People don't book hotel rooms because of segmentation charts. No, they book because someone like me makes sure your pretty feelings reach the right people. My pretty feelings have won 8 industry awards. My segmentation charts paid for them. She leaned closer to see my screen, shoulder pressing against mine. There, she said, pointing. That line. For travelers who want to feel known, not managed. Keep that. Her hair fell forward, and I caught the scent of citrus again, softer this time. Her cheek was inches from mine. If I turned my head, my mouth would almost brush her temple. I didn't move. Claire didn't either. The train rocked gently. Outside, the gray morning blurred into water and winter trees. She whispered, "You're very still." I'm trying not to do something stupid. Her finger remained on the trackpad. Define stupid. I looked at her then. Big mistake. Up close, Claire's eyes weren't just gray-green. They had flecks of gold near the center, warm and unexpected. Something that would make it hard to finish this deck, I said. Her gaze dropped briefly to my mouth. My pulse forgot its job. Then she sat back. Professionalism, she said, voice too even. How disappointing. I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. We did not talk about that, which meant we talked about everything else. Somewhere past Stanford, the Wi-Fi died, taking our shared drive with it. Claire shut her laptop with unnecessary force. Technology is a betrayal. Strong stance. I trusted it. That was your first mistake. She took a sip of coffee and grimaced. This is terrible. You bought train coffee. I was vulnerable. I reached into my bag and pulled out a second paper cup from the cafe near the station. Still warm. Oat milk, 1 raw sugar. Claire stared at it. I held it out. Before you accused me of poisoning you, I remembered your order. You remembered my order. Against my will. She took the cup slowly like it might vanish. Bennett. Hearing my first name from her in that soft tone did something unfair to me. I also got the almond croissant you pretend not to like, I said, digging into the bag. I don't pretend. You once ate 3/4 of mine during a budget meeting. It was communal. It was in my hand. You were holding it communally. I handed it over. Her laugh was quiet, almost private. She broke the croissant in half and gave part back to me. It felt absurdly intimate, eating pastry with her from the same bag while the train carried us south, our knees occasionally brushing under the little table. After a while, she said, My ex hated this. Croissants? My work. She looked down at her coffee. The hours, the focus, the way I get when I care about something. He said being with me felt like competing with a room full of invisible judges. I waited. Claire was not a woman you rushed into honesty. You sat still and let her decide you were safe. He wanted me softer, she said. Not kind. Softer. Easier to interrupt. My hand tightened around my cup. I don't want you easier, I said. She looked at me. The words came out rougher than I intended. I want you exactly as impossible as you are. Her eyes changed. Not softened exactly, opened. That sounds like putting up with me, she said. No. I leaned a little closer. That sounds like wanting you. There it was. No joke. No escape hatch. Just the truth. Sitting between us with coffee and crumbs. Claire's lips parted. For a second, I thought she might lean in. I thought I might let myself reach for her hand. I thought maybe 2 years of arguments had only been a very inefficient way of getting here. Then the conductor announced Penn Station in 10 minutes, and Claire blinked like she'd been released from a spell. She gathered the papers too quickly. We should focus. Claire. We have a pitch. I know. A major one. I know. Her hand stilled. Without looking at me, she said, After. My heart kicked once, hard. After? I repeated. She slid the revised deck into her bag and finally met my eyes. After the pitch, she said, color rising faintly in her cheeks, you can tell me again. I smiled slowly. Tell you what? Her expression turned dangerous, but her voice was warm. That you want me. The train slowed beneath us, brakes screaming softly as Manhattan swallowed the windows. I should have been thinking about the client, the numbers, the final round that could change both our careers. Instead, I was thinking about after. New York greeted us with sleet, honking taxis, and a hotel lobby that looked like it had been designed by someone who hated poor posture. Everything was marble, brass, and quiet judgment. Claire stepped through the revolving door beside me, shook rain from her coat, and immediately became the most interesting thing in the room. I watched 3 men in expensive overcoats notice her. I couldn't even blame them. She glanced at me. You're scowling. I'm thinking. About murder? Brand positioning. Same face. Before I could respond, the concierge smiled apologetically from behind the front desk. Mr. Hayes, Miss Whitaker, welcome. We have you both confirmed, but I'm afraid one of the rooms won't be ready until later this afternoon. Claire's gaze cut to mine. I held up both hands. I booked 2. I know, she said. I have receipts. I said I know. The concierge continued. We can store your luggage, of course. The conference suite is prepared for your client meeting at 11. I checked my watch. That gives us 40 minutes. Claire's expression turned brisk. Armor on. Then we need a mirror, coffee, and a flat surface. The concierge blinked. For the materials, I added. 5 minutes later, we were in a small private business lounge with our bags, 2 coffees, and Claire standing close enough to straighten my tie. I stopped breathing. You're not as crooked, she said. It had a difficult childhood. Hold still. Her fingers slid under the silk, tugging with gentle precision. The movement brought her close. Too close for my common sense. I could see the faint line of concentration between her brows, the raindrop caught near her hairline. There, she said softly. But she didn't step back. Neither did I. You know, I said, voice low, if you keep touching me before presentations, my performance may become dependent on it. Her eyes lifted. I'm willing to risk your downfall. For the good of the work? For science. My hands itched to settle at her waist. Instead, I reached up and brushed the raindrop from her temple with my thumb. Claire went very still. It was such a small touch, barely anything. But her breath caught and the sound made the whole room narrow to the space between us. "Bennett," she whispered. A knock hit the glass door. We sprang apart like guilty teenagers. Mason's face appeared through the glass. Why he had come to New York with the junior analytics team and why the universe hated me remained unclear. He opened the door. "Tell me you two are ready." Claire picked up a folder. "We're ready?" I stared at him. Mason looked between us, then at my tie, then at Claire's flushed cheeks. "Oh," he said, "you were ready." "Mason," I warned. He grinned. "I'll be outside where people aren't generating billable tension." The final pitch was held in a top-floor suite overlooking a gray sweep of Manhattan. Patricia Lowell sat at the head of the table with 4 executives beside her, all wearing the careful expressions of people about to spend a lot of money. Claire began. Not because we had planned it that way, but because she should have. She didn't sell them an ad campaign, she gave them a feeling. Arriving late, tired, rain on your coat, and having someone at the desk say your name like they were glad you made it. Then I showed them how to scale that feeling across markets. We moved together without needing cues. Claire handed me openings. I caught them. I built the bridge. She lit the lamps. Halfway through, Patricia interrupted. "The chemistry in this concept is strong, personal. How did you two arrive at it?" Claire looked at me. The professional answer was research. The safe answer was collaboration. Claire said, "We argue until the honest thing is all that's left." A smile pulled at Patricia's mouth. "Sounds exhausting." "It can be," Claire said. Then, under the table, her knee touched mine. Not accidental. My pulse slammed. I glanced at her, and she didn't look away. "But worth it," she finished. I nearly forgot how to speak. Luckily, my body had been trained by years of capitalism. I finished the financial rationale on instinct. By 1 o'clock, it was over. By 1:30, Haverford Hotels had chosen us. The room erupted in professional joy. Handshakes, restrained cheers, executives promising contracts, Mason mouthing something obscene and celebratory from the back. Claire stood very still for half a second as if she didn't trust good news on first contact. Then she turned to me. Her smile hit me square in the chest. Not sharp, not smug. Open. "We won," she said. I wanted to kiss her right there in front of the client, Mason, God, and legal. Instead, I said, "Obviously." Her smile narrowed. "Don't ruin it." "Never." Afterward, the team scattered. Mason took analytics to celebratory burgers. Patricia's assistant sent contract timelines. The hotel finally had both rooms ready. Claire and I found ourselves alone in the elevator, rising toward the 23rd floor with our bags at our feet and the city glittering wet beyond the glass. No laptops, no audience, no deck between us. Just after. Claire watched the floor numbers change. "You owe me something." "I do?" "You were going to tell me again." I turned toward her. She kept facing forward, but I saw the nervous movement of her throat as she swallowed. The elevator hummed. "I want you," I said. Her eyes closed briefly. I stepped closer. "Not because you're convenient. You are the least convenient woman I've ever met." That earned a tiny laugh. "Not because we work well together, though we do. Not because arguing with you is the best part of my day, which is a deeply troubling thing to admit." She turned her head then. I lowered my voice. "I want you when you're impossible. I want you when you're brilliant. I want you when you're standing behind my chair telling me my projections are fantasy. I want you when you're quiet because someone taught you that being loved meant being tolerated." Her eyes shone. "I don't tolerate you, Claire." The elevator stopped on our floor with a soft chime. The doors opened. Neither of us moved. Then Claire reached out and took my hand. Her fingers slid between mine, cool from the rain earlier, fitting there like they had been waiting. "Good," she said, voice unsteady, "because I don't want to be tolerated." I tightened my hand around hers. "What do you want?" She looked at me for one long, brave second. "To be chosen," she said. The words undid me. I stepped out of the elevator with her, still holding her hand, and we walked down the quiet hallway to our rooms like that. Slow, certain, terrifying. Her room came first. She stopped outside the door but didn't let go. "We should celebrate," I said. Her mouth curved. "Is that your best invitation?" "I'm under emotional strain." "Try harder." I took a breath. "Have dinner with me tonight. Not with the team. Not as partners on a pitch. With me." Claire's thumb moved once over my knuckle. "A date," she said. "Yes." Her smile trembled at the edges like she was trying not to show how much the word mattered. "Okay," she said. "A date." I leaned in slowly, giving her every chance to retreat. She didn't. Her free hand rose to my lapel and she pulled me the last inch. The kiss was soft at first. Careful. A question asked against her mouth. Then Claire made a small sound and kissed me back like she was tired of being careful. My bag slipped off my shoulder and hit the carpet. Somewhere down the hall, a door opened. Claire broke the kiss, breathless, her forehead nearly touching mine. Subtle. I've never claimed that. Her fingers were still curled in my jacket. 7 o'clock. For dinner? For continuing this argument. I smiled against her cheek. I plan to win. She opened her door, stepping backward into her room with her eyes on mine. "You never do," she said. Then she shut the door softly between us. I stood in the hallway grinning like an idiot until my phone buzzed. A text from Mason. "Please tell me you sealed the deal with Haverford and not each other on company property." I looked at Claire's closed door. Then I typed back, "No comment." At 7 o'clock, Claire opened her hotel room door wearing a black dress and the expression of a woman daring me to survive it. I did not survive it. I simply remained standing through muscle memory. The dress was simple, long-sleeved, hitting just above her knees. Nothing dramatic, nothing that should have made my brain empty itself like a tipped drawer. But it was Claire in something other than office armor, her hair loose, her mouth soft with color, one eyebrow lifting as I failed to speak. "Well?" she asked. "I had remarks prepared." "And?" "They've resigned." Her smile started slowly. "That bad?" "That good." For once, she didn't deflect. She looked down, almost shy, and that did more damage to me than the dress. "You look beautiful," I said. Claire's fingers tightened around her small clutch. "Thank you." 2 words. No blade. It felt like being trusted. The restaurant was 3 blocks away, tucked below street level, all candlelight and dark wood and waiters who spoke like they were guarding secrets. It was the kind of place I usually avoided because the menu had too many adjectives, but Claire seemed delighted by the absurdity. "Listen to this," she said, holding the menu close to the candle. "The carrots are embers of earth." Terrifying. The cod is line-caught and introspective. I refuse to eat fish with a richer inner life than mine. Claire laughed, real and unguarded, and I forgot to look at the menu. She caught me staring. "What?" I like that sound. Her expression flickered. "My laugh?" "Yes." "You've heard me laugh." "Not like that." The candle between us painted gold along her cheekbone. Around us, glasses chimed, conversations blurred, the city pressed rain against the windows. Claire looked away first, but she was smiling. Dinner was supposed to be a victory lap. Instead, it turned into a first date in the truest, strangest sense. 2 people who knew each other's coffee orders, work habits, and preferred methods of professional warfare realizing they had missed almost everything else. I learned she grew up in Providence with a father who believed praise made people lazy and a mother who loved old musicals but sang off-key. She learned I had 2 older sisters, both teachers, both terrifying, and that my childhood nickname was Benny until I threatened legal action at age 12. "Benny?" Claire said, savoring it. "No. Benny. I will leave." "You won't." She was right. I wouldn't have left that table if the kitchen caught fire. Over dessert, something chocolate, architectural, and wildly unnecessary, her foot brushed mine under the table. I looked up. Claire took a calm sip of wine, eyes bright over the rim. "Accident?" I asked. "Market test." And the findings? Promising. I leaned back, smiling. You're flirting with me. I flirt with everyone. No, you eviscerate everyone. This is different. Her gaze warmed. Maybe you're different. There were moments in life when a man should say something charming. I reached across the table and took her hand. Claire went still, then turned her palm into mine. I want to be, I said. Her thumb traced the side of my finger. That's a dangerous thing to promise. I know. People say they want sharp edges until they cut themselves. I'm not asking you to be dull. Her eyes held mine for a long time. Then she whispered, Good. We walked back to the hotel slowly, sharing my umbrella because Claire had optimistically rejected weather. The sidewalks glittered. Taxis hissed through puddles. At a crosswalk, a gust of wind shoved rain beneath the umbrella, and Claire stepped closer, her shoulder tucked against my chest. I put my arm around her, not dramatically, not possessively, just there. She fit against me with a quiet exhale that I felt more than heard. I'm still mad about what you said, she murmured. I know, but less. Progress. And I may weaponize it in future arguments. I would expect nothing less. She tilted her face up. Rain dotted her lashes. Bennett? Yeah? Kiss me before I start thinking too much. So I did. Right there on a New York sidewalk under a black umbrella trembling in the wind, I kissed Claire Whitaker like I had been waiting 2 years and one terrible sentence to earn the right. Her hand slid under my coat, curling into my shirt at my side. Mine found her waist. The city moved around us, indifferent and loud, while she softened against me in a way that made my chest ache. When we broke apart, she kept her forehead against my jaw. I'm scared, she said. The confession was so quiet I almost missed it. I held her closer. Of me? Of wanting this. Her breath shook. Of believing you. Of going back to Boston and becoming gossip. Of losing the account because people decide we're messy. Of you deciding I'm too much once this stops being candlelight and winning. I closed my eyes. There it was. The wound beneath the armor. I stepped back just enough to see her face. Claire, look at me. She did, reluctantly. I can't promise we won't be complicated, I said. We work together. We fight. Mason exists. That got a weak smile. But I can promise I'm not confused. This isn't victory champagne or hotel lighting. I wanted you in conference rooms, stairwells, budget meetings, and while you were insulting my slide transitions, they deserved it. They did. And I still wanted you. Her eyes shone again, but this time she didn't hide it. I don't want to be your mistake, she said. You're not. I brushed my thumb along her cheek. You're my choice. Claire's lips parted. Then she kissed me first. There was nothing careful about it. She rose onto her toes, both hands in my coat, and kissed me with all the wanting she had been holding back. Felt it, the challenge, the fear, the relief, the yes. By the time we reached the hotel, my shirt was damp, my pulse was reckless, and Claire was smiling like a secret. The elevator ride was silent. Not empty. Silent. Her hand remained in mine all the way to the 23rd floor. Outside her room, she turned to me. Come in for a minute. My heart punched my ribs. Claire, for a minute, she said softer. Not because we have to rush, because I don't want the night to end in a hallway. So I followed her inside. Her room was warm, dim, the curtains open to the rain-streaked city. She set her clutch down, then turned back to me with sudden nerves in her posture. I recognized that look. The instant after bravery when a person wonders if they offered too much. I crossed the room slowly and stopped in front of her. We can just talk, I said. I know. Or I can leave. I know. What do you want? Claire looked at me like the question mattered more than any kiss. Then she reached for my tie, the same one she had straightened that morning, and loosened it with a small, trembling smile. I want, she said, to not be easy. I smiled and touched my forehead to hers. Thank God. Her laugh broke softly between us. I kissed her again slow this time. No audience. No winning. Just Claire's hands at my collar and mine at her waist, the rain ticking against the glass while the two of us learned how quiet we could be together. Later, my phone buzzed on the table. Once. Twice. Again. Claire pulled back, breathless. If that's Mason, I'm resigning. I glanced at the screen. Not Mason. Our boss, Vivian Lane. Emergency meeting, Boston office, 9 a.m. tomorrow, both of you. Claire read it over my shoulder. The warmth in her face dimmed. I set the phone face down and took her hand again. Tomorrow, I said. Tonight is still ours. Claire searched my face, then nodded. And this time, when she leaned into me, she did it like she believed me. We took the first train back to Boston before sunrise. Claire sat beside me with her head against the window, wrapped in my coat because she'd insisted she wasn't cold and then immediately shivered for 20 minutes. You're smug, she murmured without opening her eyes. I'm warm. You're enjoying being right. I contain multitudes. She turned her face toward me, sleepy and beautiful in the pale morning light. If Vivian fires us, I'm blaming your tie. My tie performed heroically. Your tie was on the floor. I looked at her. She looked at me. Then she blushed. Claire Whitaker blushed, and I nearly proposed to her between Providence and Route 128. Instead, I took her hand under the little train table. Her fingers slid into mine like they belonged there now, like we had crossed some invisible line and for once neither of us planned to retreat behind sarcasm. Whatever this meeting is, I said, we handle it together. Her thumb stilled over my knuckle. Together sounds dangerous. It's your favorite kind of thing. She smiled faintly. You're learning. Vivian Lane was waiting in her glass office at 9 sharp, wearing a cream suit and the expression of a woman who had built an agency by never blinking first. Mason was there too, standing near the bookshelf with a paper cup of coffee and wide eyes that said, I know everything and I am trying not to explode. Claire and I sat side by side, not touching, but close enough that I could feel the awareness of her like heat. Vivian folded her hands on the desk. Haverford signed. Claire inhaled. That's good. It is excellent. Vivian's gaze moved between us. They signed a 12-month contract with expansion options. It's the largest hospitality account we've landed in 5 years. Mason made a tiny celebratory fist. I waited. Then why does this feel like a disciplinary hearing? Because you're perceptive. Vivian leaned back. Patricia Lowell also mentioned with great amusement that the campaign's strength seemed to come from the two of you finally admitting what everyone else already knew. Claire closed her eyes. Mason coughed into his coffee. Vivian continued. So, are we dealing with a workplace complication? The room went quiet. This was the moment to be careful, to say we were exploring our feelings while maintaining professional boundaries, to file it under none of your business and hope HR had a form. But beside me, Claire's shoulders had gone rigid. I remembered her on the sidewalk in the rain. I don't want to be your mistake. I turned to Vivian. We're dealing with a relationship. Claire looked at me sharply. I met her eyes, then took the risk. One I want, I said. One I chose, and one I'm willing to handle responsibly. Claire's face changed just a little, just enough. Vivian studied me, then her. Claire? Claire sat straighter. Same. Mason whispered, incredible testimony. Vivian didn't look at him. Mason. Silent as a tomb. Claire glanced at me and there it was again. That unwilling smile that had started everything. Vivian sighed. I'm not here to police adults. But you cannot directly evaluate each other. You cannot let personal issues affect client work. And if this becomes a drama hurricane, I will personally throw both of you into the harbor. Understood, I said. Claire nodded. Completely. One more thing. Vivian opened a folder. Haverford wants you both leading the account? Claire's hand tightened in her lap. Vivian noticed. Of course she did. You can decline. I can restructure, but frankly, the work is better when you're both in the room. I looked at Claire, not as a rival, not as a problem to solve, as the woman I wanted in every room. What do you think? I asked. Her eyes softened at the question. Then she smiled. I think your projections will need supervision. I grinned. Constantly? Unfortunately. Vivian rubbed her temple. Get out of my office. In the hallway, Mason blocked our path like an overexcited golden retriever. I just want to say, he began, as someone who has suffered through 2 years of foreplay disguised as strategy meetings, Claire pointed at him. Finish that sentence and I'll move your desk into the supply closet. He held up both hands. Blessings upon your union. I shoved him gently aside. Go work. When he left, Claire and I stood outside conference room B, the same room where I'd said the worst thing. The office buzzed around us. Phones rang, keyboards clicked. Someone laughed near the kitchen. Life continuing, indifferent and ordinary. Claire looked through the glass wall at the long table. You hurt me here. I know. I hated that you were the person who said it. Her voice was quiet but steady. Because when you said no one would put up with me, all I could think was, not you too. My chest tightened. I stepped closer, not touching her yet. I'm sorry. I know you are. I'll keep being sorry. That sounds exhausting. I have stamina. Her mouth curved. Unfortunately. I reached for her hand. This time right there in the open office, she let me take it. No hiding, no hallway almosts, no pretending we were just two people who happened to argue beautifully. I don't put up with you, I said. I love you. The words surprised us both. Claire went still. I hadn't planned to say it. Not that soon. Not under fluorescent lighting beside a conference room that smelled faintly of dry erase markers. But once it was out, it felt less like a leap than a landing. Claire's eyes filled slowly. You don't have to say it back, I said quickly. She laughed, a small broken sound. Bennett. I mean it. I know we just... Bennett. I shut up. She stepped into me, her free hand curling around my tie in front of God, Mason, and the entire open floor. I love you too, she said. Then she kissed me. The office went silent for exactly 2 seconds. Then Mason yelled, Finally! Claire broke the kiss just enough to say, Supply closet. Worth it, he called. She hid her smile against my shoulder and I held her there, laughing into her hair. 6 months later, Haverford's campaign launched in 12 cities. Claire and I still argued over headlines, budgets, dinner reservations, and whether my sock drawer was deeply alarming. We filed the HR paperwork. We set rules. We broke exactly one of them when she kissed me in the archive room after a client approved her favorite concept. She moved into my apartment by accident at first. A sweater, then a stack of books, then the special tea she claimed tasted different if brewed in my kitchen. One Saturday, I opened my closet and found her black dress hanging beside my suits. I stood there staring until she came up behind me. What? She asked. Nothing. Bennett. I turned and wrapped my arms around her. I like finding you in my life. Her expression softened in that way I had learned was not weakness, but trust. You're very sentimental for a man with labeled socks, she said. You love my labeled socks. I tolerate them. I kissed her until she admitted nothing. By the following spring, we left Hartwell and Lane and opened our own studio above a bakery in the South End. Whitaker Hayes Strategy and Creative. Her name first because she threatened to redesign my entire personality if I argued. On our first morning, Claire stood in the middle of the empty office with paint on her cheek, holding 2 coffees and looking around like she couldn't quite believe we had built a room where neither of us had to be smaller. I took 1 cup from her. Oat milk, 1 raw sugar. She noticed and smiled. Outside, sunlight spilled across the floorboards. Downstairs, bread was baking. Our desks faced each other by the windows, close enough for arguments, close enough for lunch, close enough for me to look up from any impossible day and find her already looking back. No one would ever put up with me, she said softly, teasing now. I crossed the room, brushed the paint from her cheek, and kissed her. No, I said against her mouth. Someone would love you exactly like this. What would you have done if you teased your work rival that no one would ever put up with her? And she quietly said, You do? Have you ever experienced something similar where an argument revealed feelings you didn't expect? Tell your story in the comments. If you like this one, leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.